same nonprofit that was, I remember vaguely, was accused of not doing their job?
Yes.
Is that this group?
Yes, they receive 12,000 calls for assistance a year. We know out of those 12,000 calls, between 275 and 500 kids are disseminated, and they house temporarily between 300 and 400, but we have anecdotal evidence that a lot of those people who were housed were kicked out suddenly from their shelter or denied shelter, other people were denied shelter. So, I mean, at best, if those two groups are completely separate, you're talking about actual material benefit to less than 1,000 of those 12,000 calls.
So wasn't their status, or their nonprofit status, or their executive director, I forget the details, threatened to no longer run that? Where am I remembering that wrong?
You're talking about the bill to investigate them, which was tabled by a narrow margin.
It was what?
Tabled by a narrow margin. It's effectively dead. I will say that this umbrella organization is what takes all the federal money and the state money and disseminates it to their membership organizations. The membership organizations are the ones that actually provide the assistance. So I don't think any of the membership organizations are run by terrible people. In fact, I've heard from workers and managers in those member organizations that they're as frustrated with that umbrella group as the rest of us are. It's really just the executives in the umbrella group that are the problem. The people who go to work at a shelter or a hotline, those people genuinely want to help.
They do good work in a lot of ways too. I mean, many of the workers who had HB 1675, which is the legislation I believe you're referring to, which would have started a legislative investigation on this organization, which gets 99% public dollars, but has no real accountability to where those dollars go. And as Ellen said, you got services that aren't being remitted to people who need them at these shelters. So you got, I think it's 12 coalition hubs across the state.
Oh yeah, they got rid of one. It's 12 now.
All right, so 12 now. And we had many people. One of them, actually, I won't even say that. I don't want to expose these people. They were very, very afraid of retaliation for speaking up. But they would call us and they'd tell us their story about how these services aren't being actually given to the people in the coalition hubs that they're at, or beyond that, that the coalition hubs aren't being, they're being bottlenecked with the resources that are being remitted to the top heavy parts of the organization.
So in essence, you have public funds going to public, what the Supreme Court calls a government function, because these people, they train police officers, they do the collection of evidence, rape kits, they do the management of the sex offender registry. All of these things are being done with public funds for public jobs, but they have none of the transparency and accountability that a public agency would have to have. So they get to kind of pretend that they're a public agency when they want the power and the credibility, and then they get to hide behind this very private nonprofit whenever they want to. So that bill to investigate them got amended to just having right to know access over their books. That was it. And that is the version that got tabled. It's problematic because the people in that umbrella organization have a lot of clout, political clout. And so there's a lot of pressure there to not kind of cross your eyes at them. But I don't know, I just believe in transparency. I didn't think that was very, sorry.
That was just
political clout with who?
Primarily the Shaheens. Don't know how many are fans of Jean Shaheen. I'm a hard left Democrat, but it is what it is. So.
Do you think anything's changed since this whole Epstein?
I think yes. I think the groundswell is building for more transparency and more accountability. And weirdly, this organization, through like 3 orders of connection, can be connected back to Epstein. I will explain exactly how. They received $500,000 to lobby for this California billionaire named Henry Nicholas He has this organization that's basically is seen predominantly as an attack on the rights of the accused, but he spent millions of dollars in multiple states trying to push this constitutional amendment to basically take away some of the rights of the accused. And this organization took about $500,000 to lobby. They're not allowed to lobby. They're a 501c3, so they have to keep lobbying down to 5% of their private donations, which ends up being about $11,000 a year, and yet they lobby on 150 bills a year with 5 to 7 lobbyists. The math is not mathing, but they took $500,000 from this guy. By the time they took it, this is 2018, by the time they took it, he was known, you can look him up. He was in trouble for securities fraud. He had gotten in trouble for battering his partner. He had 5 felony convictions for drug trafficking, involving this really weird situation where he had smeared feces on his girlfriend's face and she was overdosing in the hotel room and he wouldn't let the cops in to save her. Really bad situation. He also was in a 2007 ABC News article, you can look it up, it's called Billionaires in the Bedroom. 2007, before we knew what an Epstein was, right? And this article covered the sexual proclivities of 2 billionaires. One was Henry Nicholas, who, by his own admission, has a $30 million, to his words, sex and drug lair underground under an equestrian estate in Nevada. And the other billionaire that they covered in that article, you'll never guess, has a little St. James Island and is a New York financier by the name of Jeffrey Epstein. So when I was working on this just a few weeks back, I said, hey, is there any chance Henry Nicholas is in the Epstein files? And someone at the table looked it up 430 times. So the billionaire that paid this coalition organization $500,000 to lobby, which was already legally shaky, is in the Epstein files 430 times.
Would you go back, where you're making that connection with Billy and Jeannie and Stephanie too?
I don't have the particulars on all of that. I really don't. And my whole goal here is to get people aware that we have a law saying that survivors have a right to be informed of their rights, and their rights include a rape kit. And I'm fighting the very last organization I should be fighting on that. So I do believe we need transparency. I do believe there's some problematic stuff that looks like it could have been illegal, and we should be looking into that, and nobody is right now.
But you're saying it's she is.
Yes, so the public affairs director is someone who is very well connected herself. She's married to the political director for WMUR, and she has worked very heavily on the previous Shaheen campaigns. So that's our current senator, not Stephanie.
What journalists are really working either with you or someone else to bring this forward and keep it in front of the citizens of this great state of New Hampshire?
So as I said, WMUR is out because the political director is married to the public affairs director for the organization, right? On the Seacoast side, our senator, who is on this same committee, the committee that heard my bill, the senator works at one of the 12 organizations, and she is married to the person who basically ran for a very, very long time all of the Seacoast media, and that's the All Chillers.
Just to add on to that, to get to what Ellen, the press office is completely empty most days.
Yeah.
WMUR has their camera in there sometimes, but they report on the legislature in minute-and-a-half increments at the end of the political show on Sunday.
And it's not usually substantive.
It isn't substantive at all. This happens, and that happened in Bing. So Bing, bong, bong, and it's about 3 points. They make them very quickly, and then it makes you think that, everything's fine up in the legislature. It's all going great. Instead of focusing on the moments in committee where people say, there are plenty of moments of footage, bits and pieces, newsreels, muckraking to be done under the Golden Dome. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's writing any stories about Ellen Reed.
Well, her death. Nancy West.
Nancy West, it's a great point, and it's free. Nancy West is also free too, so it's a great point. I forget about it in depth. Most of the media here, NHPR does media.
NHPR did a story, a couple of stories.
And Josh has done a decent job on your being banned, actually. But the crux of it is, when Leishman started in the legislature, the press room had many, many people from many
It was
different.
packed.
It was packed, as Peter says. It was packed, full of local newspapers from across the state who had bureaus to report on the legislature. We, luckily, the Monadnock Ledger transcript contracts out with the Concord Monitor for Charlotte Matherly, so she's writing a column about the legislature in both of those papers. But that's really the only local paper that's got a column on what happens up in the State House.
Sure.
So to answer your question, are there journalists? I mean, like you said, there are a couple of stories and things like that. Is there someone comprehensively investigating what Representative Reed is talking about? The answer is no.